Baby, wait.
What? Yeah.
We're doing the...
Oh, shoot, wait.
So someone at 604 said, hey, Josh and Amanda should have a pie baking competition. And she's really good at making pie. I am not good at making desserts at all. And she seems to also be taking this a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, I really thought this was a competition. And I was prepared for that. But he broke me down and got me to tell him what kind of pie I'm making. And then suddenly his pie's looking a lot closer to my pie.
That is a lie. That is a lie.
So today I'm gonna make pecan pie. It's one of my favorite kinds of pies, and I've got a couple twists I like to put into my pecan pie. I'm also gonna make my own crust.
She accused me of cheating, but I'm not gonna make my own crust because, hear me out, I don't know how to.
Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to make my own pastry here, and so what we've got in the bowl is 3 cups of all-purpose flour. We have a tablespoon of sugar, and we have just a teaspoon of salt. And earlier I grated up some butter. The butter has to be like super, super cold, so you want to take cold butter, use a cheese grater, grate it up, and I put it back in the fridge to just make it even colder. This is controversial, but I use all butter. So we're gonna put the butter in here, and the key is try not to touch it.
So we've been talking about like what if we have kids one day, and so we've been suggesting like names to each other. Now hear me out. Womp bompa bomba, ba-bomp bompa bomba, rant. All one word. You think it's ridiculous, but it's actually pretty catchy. It's actually kind of like a beat, like womp bompa bompa, ba-bomp bompa bompa. Ramsey, what do you think?
We're still discussing it.
Why?
The next part of what we're gonna do with the pastry, it's really important to have some ice cold water and secret ingredient, vodka. So we're gonna put about a 1/4 cup of vodka in here. Again, I'm not using my hands because I don't want to heat this up too much. I want that butter to stay cold and separated. But now we're gonna use some water, some ice cold water, to try to bring it together. So little bit at a time. You know what, when I use a recipe, I always feel like they say too little water. It always takes more water than I think it's gonna take.
So for my, who knows if it's gonna work, great pie. I'm sure like a good baker would probably take the time and cut each of the grapes in half. Frankly, that sounds like some fiddly bullshit where I come from. So I'm just gonna use a potato masher, and I'm just gonna do exactly what that sounds like. And then I dumped in the sugar, and I'm gonna dump in a little bit of salt, and I'm gonna leave it alone for like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something, just to draw some of the liquid out.
Alright, so I put my dough together, I turned it out onto the countertop, made it into a little ball, now I've made it into a little disc, wrapped it up, and now it's gotta go chill in the fridge for a little while.
I still just got a bunch of grapes in a bucket. I don't know how much to add. That much. Right?
I don't know if you're picking up on the difference in our
Allspice.
approaches. I think this is pretty telling.
Ooh, cloves, just a tiny bit of that.
How much of the cinnamon did you put in?
It was about a teaspoon, which is, in hindsight, was probably way too much. That's
It
funny.
looked like more than a teaspoon to me.
And I'm gonna put this in nutmeg.
That looks nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna do a little bit of lime juice. Ooh, and maybe the zest.
Okay, Okay, so there are two things that make my pecan pie a little bit different. And one of them is we need half a cup of butter and we need it melted. But what I like to do is actually take it a little bit past melted to a brown butter. It just adds like a nuttiness and a depth of flavor. One of the best things I ever learned with pecan pie was to have 3 different kinds of textures. So we started with 2 cups of raw pecans. We toasted them. That's really important because it changes the texture completely. So I toasted them off just about 5 minutes at 400. And I took a cup out and I did about a medium chop on them. And then half a cup with a pretty fine chop. And then we are leaving half a cup approximately whole to be at the very top.
I'm gonna put in an arbitrary amount of nuts. I don't. Once again, I got a bucket of grapes, man. You know, a bucket of Christmassy tasting grapes. And arguably, perhaps 2 cinnamony grapes. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. So what I'm gonna do, with the first couple times my sister and I tried to make this, it had too much liquid in it. So I thought, when I did my proof of concept one, I added way more cornstarch than I had the other time, which definitely solved the problem. But it also seemed to help if I brought it up to a boil first. So I'm gonna do that. It still just looks the same. It still just looks like a bucket of grapes. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let it come to a boil so that the liquid can reduce just a little bit, and then I'll throw in cornstarch and water.
I have rolled out my dough after it got to be in the fridge for just a little while. Right now, I've just used a fork to do the crust around the edges. I'm gonna prick it a few times in the middle with the fork, and it's going in with some pie weights. We're just using beans today, and we're gonna blind bake it off. So we've got the oven set.
Oh shit! Should I be blind baking mine?
It's going into the oven at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. Our oven's really hot, so just keep an eye on it. Probably 15 to 20 minutes, 400 degrees. I just taught him what blind baking is.
I knew what blind baking was.
You're doing great.
Don't take her side, Roman.
Thanks, Roman. We're going to make the filling for the pecan pie now. We've got half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of white sugar. We've got a full cup of light corn syrup.
No wonder pecan pies are so sweet.
Yeah. I also have 4 eggs that have been whisked really well, so beaten together really well. We're also going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla and a teaspoon of salt.
Full teaspoon.
Yeah. Because I'm going to use unsalted butter. We're going to put the finely chopped pecans and the medium chopped pecans. And we will wait to put the full-size pecans in until we're pouring it into the pie. You're going to find that your butter just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, and then all of a sudden it just like turns brown. So just keep an eye on it. It smells like butterscotch or something like that. So it really adds to the flavor of the pie, I think. So we're gonna put it into our filling.
Trying not to ruin a pie.
I did use all of the whole pecans and made a beautiful pattern on top.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, those will get covered in as it bubbles away. And now I just want to put a little bit of an egg wash on the crust, and back into the oven it goes.
I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just finishing off little egg wash, and then into the oven she goes.
They are both at 400 degrees. So the pecan pie needs to be at 400 degrees, and then it can be uncovered once you put it in. Watch it for the first like 20-25 minutes. And if you're finding it's browning too quickly and you're worried about it burning, you can put a tent of foil over it after about 20-25 minutes.
Okay, both of these pies, we can't really cut into them for you guys because they have to cool down. I would say if you are ridiculous enough that you want to make a grape pie, my advice would be to let it cool down right down to room temperature and then actually reheat it when you want to serve it, just so that everything sets. Because if we cut either of these open right now, it'll be a massacre.
Yeah, absolutely. But they came out really well. They look really good, and I can't wait to eat it.
I think you won, though. I mean, you did make yours from scratch.
Yeah, I did.
So we hope you guys enjoy our pies. And we're gonna do we're gonna do our Christmas tradition now, which we totally stole from Matt Webb. She made me bring these back from King's Cross Station when we were playing in London. But we always watch all of the Harry Potter movies.
Shall we?
Expelliarmus!
So let us know in the comments what your favorite Christmas food is, or what your favorite tradition is, what you like to do during the holidays. Maybe who's your favorite in your whole family.
You know who would love this? Little womp bompa bompa ba-bump bompa bompa. And the whole thing is you can never ever shorten the name. Like, think about like when that kid is playing like soccer or something, like, all right, there's Tim, there's Dave, and coming down the field with a breakaway, it's young womp bompa bompa ba-bump bompa bompa.
Ramsey.
Ramsey.